If you are going to break the silence, we need to be very clear with our question or the words that come out of our mouth.
What sits inside this document is everything that the advisor has just explained to you.
If you're going to increase client fees, should you have that conversation at the start, the middle, or the end of the annual review meeting, and why?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is Craig Kouimanis and Dean Holmes with you again for UncommonCents episode 112. Here we go, strap yourself in. It's all about the money today, but really money is really the hardest part of the financial advice conversation. Emotion is. So today we're talking about one of the biggest challenges advisors face. Yes, they still face it, Dean, discussing fees with confidence and then knowing when to stay silent. So the reality is that clients don't buy advice because it's cheap. They buy advice because they believe it'll improve their future. Yet what we still have, in maybe a personal opinion, but I think we're on the same page, and is too many advisors undermine the value by apologizing for their fees or over-explaining them or just rushing to justify every dollar. So in this episode, we're going to explore why confidence matters, why silence can be one of the most powerful communication tools you have, and how the way you present your fees often determines whether the client sees them as an investment or simply a cost. So welcome, my friend Dean. Let's get into it, mate.
Thank you, Craig. Happy to be here as always, and a special afternoon edition. So
yes.
If you are heading home after picking up the kids from school, welcome to the afternoon edition. Let us know if this time is better or worse. And for our listeners that listen to it while at the gym, keep lifting those weights, John and Sarah, to get through. But Craig, you've got a story. We've got to start this off with a story around pricing, an experience that you participated in. So lead us off with a story. It's always good to learn from those stories.
It is. I used to manage a large advice team for one of the banks. And one of the things I loved, Dean, was actually going and sitting in client meetings, because that's where you have the most fun and that's where all the great stuff goes on. And I was with one of my advisors one day who was presenting a pretty complex self-managed super fund advice strategy, and it had an appropriate fee attached to it. And this is some time ago now. So how long we'll work out how old I'm getting. The fee was in the $20,000 for the advice and the execution and implementation and things. So it was quite a significant fee even for back then in terms of what it was. And the first part of the story that I liked was the way the advisor actually presented the fee to the client. After she'd been through the strategy and all of the things that she did in the way she presented her plan, she actually then grabbed the advice document and went to the fee page. So she didn't use the advice document throughout. Obviously, it had everything in it, but she had a presentation. But she went to the fee page and spoke through, do you have an understanding of what I've spoken about? Do you see value in what I've spoken about? And yes, and she goes, look, for us to be able to do this, to execute and implement this advice for you and this strategy. And she didn't say the number, Dean. What she did is she got her pen and she circled it on the fee page in front of both of the clients and just said, this will be the cost. And then she actually went quiet, which I did. And so after a little bit of silence, and by the way, let's just insert here, no one has ever died of awkward silence, so don't be scared of it. We can talk about that later. The client went, can I think about it? That age-old one, which I'm sure anyone who's been in a position of selling anything has had at some stage someone say to them, can I think about it? And the advisor at the time went on to say, well, of course you can think about it. And as she was saying that, I had this epiphany to lean across the table and grab the advice document. And and the gentleman looked at me. So we had a husband and wife couple there. The gentleman looked at me and said, what are you doing? And I said, well, but I need that to read, to think about it. And I said, that's fine, but what sits inside this document is everything that the advisor has just explained to you, the entire strategy that she's built, the way it works, the way it's going to be implemented. There's flow charts, there's everything you need to know in here of how to do it. So I can't give you this document if you want to think about it. Or if you want the document and you want to think about it, then the fee that we've just proposed to you, you need to give us 80% of that right now. And then you can take the document. And then insert awkward silence. And funnily enough, as it evolved out, he ended up looking at his wife and she looked at him and he went, actually, let's just go with the advice. It sounds fantastic. So it's just not letting them leave with the value. Mate, I didn't actually think they were going to leave with this document and go and implement it themselves anyway. It was still too hard for them to do that. But it's one of those moments where they actually needed to understand the value of the advice that was being given, and the fact that they couldn't take it with them brought it to light for them that it was, oh, actually, maybe we should just go ahead with this.
Go ahead and get it done. Yeah. Absolutely. And there's a variety of lessons just in that one story of thinking about the entire sales process. And the demonstration of the fee at the end of the proposal is absolutely right. Whether you say it or write it down, creating that silence is amazing. But then also getting them to acknowledge what they want to do next. So that idea that you were working down that path of going, what do you want to think about? You're better thinking about it in the room with us than you are possibly thinking about it at home with no one to bounce the questions off. I find that's really the interesting thing. If you have that open-ended question of going, you absolutely can think about it. Let's think about it together now. What is the most important question that you would have for you to think about it? What is the thing? And so then it's like, is it the price? Is it the strategy? Or am I not yet clear on what you're actually going to do for me as a result? I'll cover off a few of those kind of things as we go through today, Craig.
Yep.
I wanted us to firstly highlight a little bit of the complexity of the world that we live in terms of talking about fees with clients. And with the attempt of going, yes, we want clients to have informed consent, and we know what that means from an AFSL perspective, but also we are the front line of explaining a variety of fees that the client will pay everyone else in the industry. So it's really an interesting position that we have to always be in, which I can't think of another industry that you have to break down and tell all the parts that everyone else is getting paid as part of the process. But as we know, we have to talk about our fee. We have to talk about the product fee. We have to talk about the underlying MER. We have to talk about the performance fee. We have to talk about the insurance fee. We have to then calculate the insurance commission. We then have to tell the client that my fee gets split with my licensee, which they have no idea who it is, but yet they take 10%. And I have to tell them that. And then I have to tell them that because you've been referred by the accountant down the road, I send him 10%. And so you need to know that. And the complexity of that situation and all of those things are happening in every business at this point in time. We have to acknowledge that we're within a complex system, and we are the only ones that have the chance to simplify it. And if we don't simplify it for our clients through this idea of confidence and silence, then it's just going to result in more and more confusion over time from the client, and always not battling, but always having to potentially re-explain fees and charges and movements and how the whole industry works, because we didn't necessarily take the clear path from the beginning. And so my process for getting you to think about how the fees need to be explained is actually breaking it down into two parts. And so when I think about preparing to explain fees with a client, knowing that there's going to be this level of complexity that we want to walk through, what I've found is valuable is explaining the concept and then the dollars. Okay, so breaking that down into two parts, what I'm sitting in front of a client saying is, I want to explain how our fees work, and then we're going to talk about the dollars and cents. Okay, and so then you're able to speak to the clients about what your initial fee might be, what your ongoing fee might be, and what maybe the additional product fees might be if the client decides to go ahead and take your investment recommendations. And so by breaking it into the two parts, we're able to give the clients the context for those different fees first and foremost, and frankly, what the deliverables are or might be underneath those fees, before moving to that second phase of then talking about the fees. Okay. And so if we break it down into those two spots, clients get the opportunity to ask questions at the end of phase one. Let me explain how our fees work. And then they get the opportunity to ask questions at the end of phase 2, i.e. why is your fee $10,000?
Yeah. And I think, Dean, and I've heard you mention this 1,000 times, but as you're going through that phase about how your fees work, it's important to have in the back of your mind that people don't buy SOAs. I love the line you use all the time is, if you've got an SOA and you don't have an SOA, what are you going to charge for?
Yes.
So they don't buy SOA. They don't buy reviews. They don't buy portals. They don't buy meetings. They're buying confidence. They're buying less stress, better decisions, like their financial freedom, or even just simply like someone in their corner, right? That's ultimately what they're buying. And so as you're going through the phases you've just described, you got to work out how to bring that element into it.
Absolutely. And there's some, as you think about this and practice it, and part of what I do is I get advisors to practice their pitches and their explanation, is words are very, very important in terms of explaining it first and foremost, and then less words is better in terms of this journey. And so the what not to do is the funny bit that we're about to go on to, Craig. But the reality is that it happens, and I want all of our listeners to think about the what nots to do and practice this at home, whether it's looking at the mirror or practicing it on a Teams call and recording it and watching it back, is try to avoid a couple of things that I often see. Okay.
Yep.
And so a couple of things that I think is really important in terms of what not to do. First and foremost, I don't want clients to not know what the fee is before the end of the meeting. Okay. And so often what I see in terms of, let's just call it a first meeting, whether it's a second meeting or in your process, it doesn't really matter. But imagine this scenario where the client's gone, Craig's a great guy. I really trust him. I think he could be our great financial advisor. And I turn to my wife and I look at her as we're leaving the meeting, or we click close on the Zoom. And I go, I wonder what it costs to work with Craig. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so first thing, I think it's a mistake to not tell the clients what the fee is in the meeting. We are capable as professionals 90% of the time to tell the clients what the fee is. Okay. Do not hide the fee. Do not say the fee and then put it into a 7-page engagement agreement. Because, Craig, what will you do as a consumer on any quote you've ever received for your entire life?
Try and get it cheaper.
Good. Okay.
Yep.
Yes. Everyone. Craig's surname is Kouimanis. You may have realized you tried to get it cheaper.
No, mate. But I think you don't actually look at any of the valuable thing. You go straight for the number.
Straight for the number. Thank you, Craig. That's exactly the second thing that I wanted.
I'd let that out a bit for you.
Yeah, that's all right. So they go straight for the number. And so the really interesting thing that you have to imagine at that point in time is clients have lost the joining of the two things that we're talking about is really important. Craig's a great guy. I think he can really help us. And that price is fair. Doesn't have to be cheap. Doesn't have to be expensive. That price is fair. Splitting those two things up, the client has forgotten how they felt when they met Craig. And all they've got now is this 6-page document with fees at the end. And they've scrolled directly to the fees and they've went 12 grand. That's a lot of money. And they've lost the opportunity to ask questions in the moment. They've lost the opportunity to understand those fees with a back and forth conversation. So lost opportunity. I think we need to talk about the fees in the meeting. Now, when we do go to talk about the fees, what not to do is circle around the issue 3 times. Okay. So often I see this scenario where, as I said, we set up a little bit of context about the fees. So we set up that context. Then we go to the next phase of going, this is what the fee is. And then you tell them the fee, and then you retell them all the value that they're going to get as a result. Okay. So we've gone through this exercise of telling them some stuff and then getting to the point where you've told them the fee and you've kept talking along the way after telling them the fee. And the reason why it's important to stop talking is not for you, and I don't believe it's a sales tactic. What I always say, Craig, is you're giving the client an appropriate amount of time to have a think. Okay? Have a think about what I just said, and then let's continue the conversation. And lots of advisors will continue the iteration of the value and talking, just adding word salad as I'm doing now. Just keep adding stuff, and the client is still trying to listen as well as think about what you just said.
And I think, Dean, if you keep talking like that, you'll end up negotiating against yourself. You just keep running out of things to say, and next minute
Absolutely.
I don't know, you've just gone all wrong.
Correct. So don't talk after the price. I'm sure if you watch Jordan Belfort sales tactics, he'll talk about it in the context of it's a sales tactic. Motivate yourself by the virtue of you giving the client an appropriate amount of time to think. It's a much nicer way of motivating yourself to keep your mouth shut. Okay. Next one, Craig, is that silence. And the silence can be an appropriate length to give the clients time to think, but it's much longer than what you think. A 5-second silence on a call is not a long time. And what do you think is an appropriate amount of silence, Craig? I think you've got a bit of a story as well about the silences.
I do. And this is me buying cars. In every transaction I've done with a car, I've practiced awkward silence, right? Like you. And I remember I took my son to get his first car, and obviously it got down to what the price was going to be for the car. And I looked back at the sales guy who was looking at the thing, and I said, that's not appropriate price. This is the price. And then sat there and said nothing. And my son, I can see him, he's starting to move. He's looking at me, he's looking at the guy, and then he started talking.
And said, like, Dad, I really want the car. And you're like,
yeah. And I got in the car, like, pretty close. Once everyone's felt a bit of pain, that's the right number. We say that in every transaction.
Yep.
But I remember driving home with him, and he's like, oh my God, why did you just sit there staring at him saying nothing? That was so awkward. And mate, I reckon I got to 2 minutes, like, and just kept coaching myself silently in my head, do not talk. And he was mind blown. He was like, that was the worst thing I've ever experienced. Later, he gets home, he's like, Mum, Dad just said the price and then sat there and kept staring at the guy and said nothing.
So there you go. There's a world record. If anyone's listening and has sat in a sales meeting and let the client think about it for 2 minutes, that's a great record.
There you go.
What I tell my guys, Craig, you were coaching yourself. I tell my guys to lick the top of their mouth with their tongue. You can do that with your mouth closed. You can just do it. No.
Why am I doing that now, Dean?
Do it now. Hopefully everyone's giving it a try who's listening, because it's just a way of slightly distracting yourself without looking weird in front of the client and giving them that appropriate time. Okay, next thing, Craig, in terms of the price and going back to that thing of when I talk about context and then the price, the next challenge that I have, as you alluded at earlier, is I don't think we should be selling the statement of advice as an outlandish statement. Statement advices should be free in my world. Everyone can have unlimited SOAs. It's not where the value is. Clients don't value them. They're getting produced quicker and easier over time. No one's read them, etc., etc. So do not attach your price to the worst document in the world. Attach your price to the value and the service. The second thing around this is another catch your language kind of thing is when you do charge for the SOA. So it might be a couple of steps. Definitely don't say, I have to charge you for the SOA, okay? Because once again, like that language, you don't have to do anything, but the idea that you're forcing a fee onto the client because you have to write a statement of advice, it's not in their world. A logical person to that statement would say, you don't have to write me a statement of advice, Craig. It's okay. You don't have to do it. They don't understand, but it's attaching, it's creating this anchoring to the price to the law when the client doesn't necessarily care about that. So if the first step is remove the I have to charge for an SOA. Second thing is try to charge for the relationship. Third thing is don't try to sell twice in a 12-month period. So the last thing that I observe is that advisors may go through this process of charging an initial fee to become a client, or in stealth, charging for the SOA. So they'll say it's $5,000 to get started for us to do this piece of advice. Okay. Then you come to present the piece of advice, and within that piece of advice, there's a $5,000 ongoing fee. Okay. So that means that we now, when we're meant to be presenting the advice and getting the clients excited for the journey, the clients have to make a second decision, Craig, of whether they want to go on the ongoing service plan with you. And what's happened is that now they thought it was $5,000, but really it's $10,000. So my preference is that you don't need to sell twice in the first 12 months. You can go through this exercise of explaining it, of what it's like to work with us for 12 months. That fee happens to be paid 50% upfront and 50% monthly. And we do that for your convenience. Okay. Anyone can pay the fees 12 months in advance, but for your convenience, we decided to split it up. It makes it so much nicer to have the client feel like we're doing things for them. So we're just deciding to structure it in that way. But that avoids, when it comes to presenting the advice, remember, you're presenting the worst document in the world. We don't want to have new fees explained that have no context in that document overall.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what you said there, Dean, because it's the first time I've heard you say it a different way with the SOA. And I'd never thought about it. But as a client, if you're saying to me, oh, the SOA fee is going to be this, you're right. I'm going, don't give me one then. But just give me the advice.
Yeah.
Which we know they have to give them one. But that's that very point, right, is that you can't tie it to the SOA. Because, I just loved how you said that, because the client would go, I don't want one then.
Yeah. It's very logical to not want one, especially if they've ever seen one in their life. One of my clients has a statement of advice on his boardroom table. I'm going to send him this so he hears this particular part, but you may know this guy. So he's got a statement of advice in his boardroom to show clients what they get for the fee. And I'm trying to talk him out of this, because it's this 50-page document that he flicks through in front of the client. And I'm like, I don't think that's the right strategy. Therefore, you're selling the paper and the document. And we go back and forth, and he says that he gets great feedback on the advice. Doesn't mean it's the document that closes it. It's more the relationship, the advice, and the strategy. But yeah, clients might see that document and say, oh, I don't need one of those. Just tell me the advice. I've got a really good memory. So yeah, good pick up through that process. There are a couple of things, Craig, that we go, look, let's try to avoid these things in order to make the experience better for our clients going forward. Now, the next challenge, Craig, is putting up fees for new and existing clients. So putting up fees for new clients is relatively easy, because you, like a restaurant, work out the menu. Okay, price the menu with profit involved, and then you go out to your customers in the restaurant and you give them the menu. Okay, so in that same context, as I said, we're professionals. We can price 90% of the clients upfront in our head, and we should tell them the price just like a restaurant does. And so if we increase our price for new clients going forward, it should be relatively easy to have those conversations. And it's just about building a muscle. When you get a yes at a higher price, that's great. You feel good. You get a yes at the higher price again the second time, and then you start feeling bad because you should have done it 6 and 12 months ago. So we know we need to put our prices up in general, and we just have to start and have the wins and keep going down that path. The bigger challenge is repricing historical clients that we have to have the conversation around. And so this is something that I'm focused on with a few of my clients at the moment, Craig, whereby we're going through the exercise of understanding what client fees might need to increase to, and then what the conversations need to happen as a result of that. And there's a variety of different ways, and the good and the bad from that. The old thing is the cost of goods sold has gone up, so your fees going up is somewhat appropriate, although it doesn't necessarily feel that gives the client any kind of value on the value of advice, but also the idea that they're a valued ongoing customer. So I think the cost plus discussion is fraught with a little bit of danger, but at the end of the day, we have to have a structure for talking to clients about fee changes or frankly fee increases, and make sure that once again that conversation is structured and held, the conversation is held at an appropriate time.
And Dean, on that, mate, what you're just saying, like, there's nothing worse than a due to increased costs, is there? Like,
that doesn't feel nice.
But you could look at that and go, instead of that, we've continued to invest in our people, in technology, in cybersecurity, the client experience, so we can keep delivering the level of advice that you expect from us.
That's great. Right? Anyone watching, write that one down and say that, because at the end of the day, that's the same thing, Craig. That's it. Costs have gone up, right? But it's not just that my rent has gone up by inflation. It's that we're wanting to invest in this business, in people and process and technology. The sum of those things do cost more than what they did 2 years ago. And it's only fair that all of our clients pay pro rata for that, because they'll all get the benefit today and into the future.
Yep. And I think too, Dean, like the annual increase that just chips away is way better than like a 5-year shock where all of a sudden you go, oh, well, I've avoided this for so long and now the gap's like this and I have to get there to be sustainable.
Absolutely. So absolutely. If you're putting clients on ongoing fixed retainers, however you do it, but those fixed retainers should increase by inflation, whether you want 3%, 4% or inflation, you decide. Often we just say 3% to keep the world simple. But yes, those retainers should go up by 3%. If you miss 3 years in a row, that's 11 or 12% with the compounding of it that you've gone backwards to. And then it's starting to become a more difficult conversation. So retainers should definitely be increased with inflation annually. If you're in the situation where you have to have that brave conversation, I've got a question for you, Craig. If you're going to increase client fees, should you have that conversation at the start, the middle, or the end of the annual review meeting, and why?
For me, I would have it at the start.
Yep.
Because I think you've just got to be upfront about it. And I know psychologically, if you leave it to the end, it's just going to sit in your head the entire meeting and you're going to get anxious and butterflies and all of that kind of thing. So you've just got to deliver it at the start. And I think you've got to make sure when you deliver it that you're not asking permission for it, but that you're informing them professionally around why this is what we're doing. Your advice fee will go up. This allows us to continue investing in the advice and technology and service, and just be so confident, and certainly don't apologize for it.
Yep.
And then, Dean, you've got the rest of the meeting to build the confidence into terms of why they are paying that fee increase.
Yep. Excellent, Craig. I was assuming and hoping that you would say that as
you're hoping I was going there.
So the reason why I don't want you to do it at the end, if we just deconstruct the options, is that I think rationally some people will say, I'll do it at the end because I'll demonstrate all this value in the meeting, and then the clients will say yes at the end of the meeting, right? And so the reason why I caution against this is that often we talk too long in meetings. So meetings go too long, okay? In general, advisor meetings go too long, I say. And as a result of that, you cut off the end of the meeting, and then you'll cut off the fee increase conversation, and you'll pat yourself on the back and say, oh, it's okay, I didn't increase the fee on this one, because the real reason was I ran over time and didn't get time to have the conversation. So your story, Craig, of going, let's rip the Band-Aid off, absolutely is there. And then the second one is absolutely that we need to, I think Craig's might be dropping out and dropping back in. Second thing is that we need to make sure that, he's back. We have those conversations at the front or the middle. Welcome back, Craig. Because the front and the middle is actually where we should have those conversations. Don't leave them to the end, because you'll forget, you'll delay, or you'll leave it off the list and still pat yourself on the back. So go in early with those conversations. I had a conversation with an advisor recently as well, Craig, about increasing the fees via mail. Now, whether this is the post or email, let's just break that down. And so what I how I break that down is into two parts. So if the fee increase is an admin problem, and now an admin problem is the fee goes up by 3 or 4% per year, that's an admin department's increase. That goes out via email or the post, and clients can sign that off. Fees going up by inflation doesn't need a phone call, or it doesn't need to be discussed in a client meeting. It's just the way we do business. We increase fees like this. If you're wanting to do a step change in the fees and you're sending that out with your annual fee agreements and things like that, which often happens, you can't always have your fee agreements linked to when you're doing your review meetings and things like that. I think if the fee is going up by more than that rate, like you're repricing, I'd love you to get on the phone. Okay.
Yeah.
And this get on the phone is for clients that are above 40 or 45. They're okay with making phone calls. It's another episode, Craig, that we should break down the generations and how they like to be communicated to.
Yeah.
Above 40, jump on the phone, give them a call, give them a heads up of what's coming in the email. Okay. So it's a quick call. Now, what you and I understand, Craig, is if the client picks up the phone, they're okay to talk to you for 3 minutes. If they didn't want to talk to you for 3 minutes, they wouldn't have picked up your phone call because your name comes up on the phone. Okay. So this is the whole thing, is you've got permission to talk to the clients for 3 minutes because they answered the phone. Quick phone call. G'day, Craig. It's Dean here. I've just got to let you know something that's happening at the moment. We're doing our annual fee reviews. We're making a change to some of the fees that we're charging you. I just wanted 1 minute to explain what's going on, and it'll be in the paperwork. Go and do that, have the conversation, and then let the email go out, the fee increase go out that night. Okay. If they don't pick up the phone, my preference for everyone, and my record is probably an 89-year-old, is you hang up the phone and you send them a text message. Okay. Everyone is moving into this world where if you missed a call, don't leave a voicemail, just hang up and send a text message. It's clearer. You can do it from your computer for most people. You can type it and away it goes. And the client's got a pretty clear reason why they should call you back. Okay. Don't necessarily, therefore, you don't get into phone tag, but you might be clear on that message. And if you can't get back to them within the 24 hours, then the email is sent out, but they have a little bit of context that you were trying to call them to let them know.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. I think absolutely pick up the phone is the best way to do it. But I do like your thinking. If people expect it with admin fees, like it's okay to broadcast that out.
I'm in Sydney. The tolls go up by CPI every quarter. They don't ring me to let me know. They just put the big announcement in flashing lights as you're going over the bridge that the rates will be going up next quarter. So,
mate, you know what you pay for Netflix a month?
Netflix goes up. I think it went up by inflation or something more. They just sent out an email. So we can be better than Netflix by giving an explanation, some context, and a phone call. But don't be afraid that if it is that small increase, you don't have to call everyone for a $20 a month increase, but you have to do that 20 because 20 times 100 clients is starting to be meaningful to invest in your business. All right, Craig, we're going to finish off with a couple of questions for you. So given you've been in a fair few client meetings over your short career, what's the worst fee explanation you've ever witnessed in a client meeting?
That one's easy. We've talked about it today, mate. It's the SOA fee is this. You're paying for SOA. The SOA kills me.
Very good. Very good. And ever sat in a client meeting where the silence was too long?
I don't think I've ever sat in one where the silence was too long. I told that story earlier. Like, I think it was subdued enough. I have sat in plenty of meetings where the silence was broken too early, though, by the wrong person.
Yes.
Yes.
And so I think that if you are going to break the silence, we need to be very clear with our question or the words that come out of our mouth. So we don't necessarily want to break the silence, but if there's two alphas in the room and the silence is going on forever, I think the next statement, which we got this from Julia a few years ago, Craig, what would you like to ask me about the fee? Okay. So this closed question is, do you have any questions? Default's no. Okay. But Craig, what
Yep.
would you like to ask me about the fees that I proposed to you today? Opens the door for them to have to speak, okay? And they have to speak a sentence. They can't just say no to that question. Craig, what would you like to ask me about the fees we've discussed today? Their response needs to be a sentence, and most likely they'll be going, "Oh no, Dean, those fees are fine. I was just thinking about it." You go, "Great, let's move on." Okay.
One of the other ones I like with that is, Dean, I noticed you paused. What's on your mind?
Yeah. Yep. If you, I'm sure AI and Google can give you a list of.
Oh, they give you 1,000 of how to break silence or something.
But yeah, absolutely. We don't use Google here, Craig. We use our own experience. However, the homework would be to just think about some of those open-ended questions, because they're very powerful to get the client to talk more about what might be going on in their head, hesitation or approval to go ahead. They're just wanting to break the silence. So that's really good for us to remember. And last question for you to think about, just in terms of advisors that are undercharging, they're in their book, what actually is their first move?
I think, mate, you've got to do, let's go back to their strength of advising and numbers and stuff, that part of the strength that they have. Understand what the cost to serve is and what is profitable and what's not. And when I was on the podcast with Roxy a little while back, I said this too. I think there was a lot of work done many years ago on pricing advice, but I think that's disappeared. I think you've got some stuff coming up on that too, mate, under your coaching banner in terms of pricing and stuff too. So if anyone wants to rethink about that, hit my mate up there. But
thanks, Greg.
That was an unplanned plug, Dean. But go and reprice your advice. Reprice what you're doing. See if you're profitable or not, and have that knowledge and that power. Because if you know your numbers and you know where it's at, then you can confidently think about how I increase up my price and why I'm doing it. And it'll give you a sense of satisfaction as to why you're doing it, that you're not just doing it for the sake of it, that you understand exactly what it costs, what profit you need to make, and therefore what you need to charge a client.
Amazing, Craig. That is the best question. Open-ended questions get the best results. But that was episode 112, fees, confidence, and silence. So the last thing that I say on this matter is that your client meetings are your grand final. Do not try new things on grand final day. So if you liked anything that we said today, take it, practice it with your spouse, your business partner, or your child. It doesn't matter. Practice a few times before going into your grand final.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Dean.
Thanks, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Bye.